The last 10 years, we've seen a tremendous boom in infrastructure. And that has really helped travel and tourism.
The idea behind the launch of MakeMyTrip that happened in the 2000, what led to that?
Only because of the internet and the impact. I could feel it in my bones that this is going to change everything forever.
What kind of a mindset should a budding entrepreneur have?
Not giving up, call it perseverance or call it resilience, is the number one attribute for any entrepreneur. We are doing a wonderful program with Niti Aayog, which came as an idea from them, where we are actually teaching a lot of homestay owners, these are ladies typically, on how to convert their current home into a homestay, one room at a time.
You recently said AI is going to do the same.
It's actually scary, to be honest, right? It is going to have an impact on jobs. Some jobs will change. People like to just brush it under the carpet and say, oh, that's exactly what happened with computerization. Sure, but this is far bigger.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MyGov's latest podcast series, GDP at MyGov, Growth, Dreams, a Passion. Early 2000, as a matter of fact, tab ki baat ki jaye to the only 4G that was trending at that point of time was Anil Kapoor's AG, OG, Logi, Sunoji. There was a brief statistic, a rough statistic, that only about less than 2% of Indian population used to use internet at that point of time, as a matter of fact, 2004, 2005. But our guest today created a startup back then, which then became a multi-billion-dollar corporation. The absolute OG entrepreneur is here with us, Deep Kalra, founder of MakeMyTrip. Deep, welcome to MyGov.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Absolutely our pleasure. So Deep, first question, founder of MakeMyTrip, now non-executive chairman. How is life now like? How is life these days going on?
Yeah, life is great. I chose to step down from day to day, which is executive work, a couple of years ago. To be honest, I wanted to do it when I turned 50. Now I'm 55. But somewhere in the middle, COVID happened. And COVID meant that all hands on the deck because the business of travel was completely ravaged and devastated. So that was a very exciting time all over again, because very tough time for us, which means crisis. Crisis means excitement. Excitement means, all your startup, skills come to the fore. So I think once that worst part of COVID was over and travel, as we know, came back with a bang now, right after that, Zindagi Na Mile Dobara, everyone is traveling. So then I expressed my desire to step back and to create more time for some passion projects, which we can talk about if we have time. But also because my co-founder, Rajesh, I think was, already CEO. I was executive chairman and was doing a great job. And I felt it's only fair that he gets a free hand to run the company. And I did want to get some time off, like I said. So I'm actually loving this balance. I still spend, about a quarter of my time on MakeMyTrip. It's lumpy. Some days are busy. Some days we travel on MakeMyTrip work. And then the other days I get a lot of time to do other stuff.
Lovely, lovely. So basically the reason why MyGov started this podcast series is for the youngsters of the country, the young guns of India. Everybody wants to build a career. And that is why the series was called GDP, Growth, Dreams, Passion. Do you like the name?
I love it. When you were giving the introduction, I said, wow, that is cool. That is actually, I think, the more exciting GDP. One GDP we all know, gross domestic product is all fine, but then I like this definition. I'm going to use it and borrow it sometime. But very nice initiative from MyGov. I think much needed to spark the passion and the dreams of many young wannabe entrepreneurs. Also, I think the reality is that we will not be able to create enough corporate, government, and other kind of regular career jobs to take care of our burgeoning young population that's coming out of schools and colleges. And I think it's very clear, the Prime Minister has said it multiple times, that entrepreneurship and own businesses will play a very big part. So I think it's a great idea that you're doing this.
All right, we'll take a small little trip down memory lane. Early 2000s. Many people don't know this, that MakeMyTrip was launched both in the States and in India, and then relaunched again in India. We'll talk about that. But the idea behind the launch of MakeMyTrip that happened in the 2000, what led to that?
So I had worked for about 8 years after my MBA. I finished my MBA in 1992 from IIM Ahmedabad. I had no dreams of being an entrepreneur. To be honest, at that point of time, I was quite happy to take a corporate career. I think I grew up in that kind of environment. My father was in the private service. My mother was a teacher. So I was very happy to follow the same kind of thing. And I did, my first job was with a bank called ABN AMRO, which was a wonderful place to learn. I didn't want to do banking, so after 3 years, I thought I want to seek out something more exciting. I worked with an American company then called AMF Bowling, who was new to the country. I was their first employee. So actually, it became my entrepreneurial kind of venture without realizing it. So I cut my teeth on entrepreneurship, I think, with AMF. But after 4 years, I actually seeked out more learning. I felt I'm losing out on learning, and I moved to GE Capital. They gave me a very nice opportunity as vice president for new business development. New businesses around 99 time frame were obviously around the internet. And so I got exposed both formally and in my personal life to the internet. And I have to tell you, the reason I turned entrepreneur was only because of the internet and the impact. I could feel it in my bones that this is going to change everything forever. And we were doing some stuff at GE India also around the internet, which was exciting, but not fulfilling enough for me. So I wanted something more. I wanted to do something where I guess I could control the whole thing. And I was quite, I think, happy to create something from scratch. I had two business ideas. One of them was obviously around travel, online travel, which became MakeMyTrip. And the other one was around online stockbroking. And the thesis was very simple. Like you said, there was no 4G at that time. It was a dial-up modem. And it was a very slow connection. It would keep breaking. Maybe people in your generation don't know it, but anyone in my generation will remember those days, late 90s, early 2000, were the very early days of the internet in India. But anyone who went through the tough, let's say, tapasya of going online and staying online could actually feel it that this is going to make a big change. And I was one of those, so I set out to, build something on it, which now has become MakeMyTrip, of course. But I took the plunge because I felt that the world of online travel can definitely disrupt traditional travel. The way traditional travel was allowing people to book tickets and all was fairly, I would say, inefficient. And I felt technology can be the disruptor and make it much easier for all constituents. So not only for the customer, of course, you'll get all choices and you'll make an informed decision, but even for the partners, the suppliers, whether it's airlines or hotels or cab companies, for them it was a great opportunity to put forward all their inventory and allow people to make a choice. So, as we know in travel, a room not booked, a seat not sold is gone forever. Right. It's perishable. The inventory is perishable. It's not like something you put in your warehouse and you can sell it tomorrow, you can sell it day after. Right. So to maximize revenue and to maximize occupancy or load factor is the key. And there online can play a big part because an online platform which becomes popular can put the big suppliers, airlines, hotels, like I said, cab companies, cruise companies, homestays, in touch directly with the myriad, the millions of consumers out there who want their product. So you have supply on one side, you have demand on one side, and we became then the interface which would match the two together.
All right, how I read it somewhere, how true is it that when MakeMyTrip was starting off, you put your own savings and savings of your wife, both of those were put together as capital?
Yeah, that was the only capital one had. I didn't come from a business family. Parents had given wonderful education, which was there to help. But when it came to capital, that's all I had. So luckily, my wife, she was also working at that time. So we pooled our savings and we went about and we said, let's do this.
Wonderful, wonderful. So it started in 2000 and very soon, there were multiple world-changing events that happened. There was an economic downfall that happened. 9/11 happened. As a matter of fact, the dot-com burst that was happening, even a bubble burst happened to that as well. So how did MakeMyTrip recover from this tough phase?
Yeah, I call it the triple whammy because for us it really was. Our business, remember, at that point of was largely non-resident Indians traveling from US to India. India business was there, but people were using us more as a reference point. So they would check us online, they would see a good price, they would take a printout and go and show it to their travel agent and say, net pe ye mil raha hai.
Wow.
That went on for many years and it was very irritating, but actually over time, then that became the barometer. And people started trusting that because even travel agents started saying, okay, we'll match it once, we'll match it second time. But their cost structure was obviously different from ours. So there was no question. So the triple whammy was indeed 9/11. which after 9/11, I can tell you most non-resident Indians, most people in the US didn't want to get on a plane. Why US, even beyond? There was so much fear. Dot-com bust hit India shores. I think late 99, it was all over the US. And then in 2000, it hit India, which meant our venture capitalists wanted their money back. And the third storm for us was actually the SARS epidemic. And SARS was actually the forefather of COVID-19. Yes. And people flying from the west coast of US, where we had lots of customers, all our techies in Silicon Valley or in Seattle, would often fly over the Pacific. And they didn't want to now, fly, because they said, one, we have 9/11, on top of it, we have SARS. So we were going through really a tough time. We were battered from all directions. But the toughest part was that our venture capitalists who had given us initial money, $2 million, wanted their investment back and wanted to shut down the business. So I think the real challenge at that point, and which was, I guess, in hindsight, a defining moment for us, was to make the decision to carry on despite buying out the venture capitalists with whatever capital one could get, some angel support. So individuals in this VC firm, eVentures, they backed me. A couple of them backed me. We found a couple of other like-minded people. Some of my colleagues, actually, they took great cuts in salary, etc. And we said, let's make a fight of this. I think I'd like to define 2001 to 2003 period. Those 2 years were really the toughest period for us. True, bootstrapping, very little money, not enough visibility for beyond 2 months of salary or 2 months of rent. So when you're pushed to the wall, then you make the toughest decisions, and you also make the rupee or the dollar stretch a lot. That's what we learned to do. So we shrunk to a tiny office, actually a mezzanine, very, very tiny space at 11, 12 rupees a square foot in Okhla Phase 1, in a very shady industrial area, a Dharam Kanta right under it. So it was quite crazy. And we worked day and night, like literally so many people would sleep in office quite often, had a toothbrush in office. We all did that. And we were a tiny band then. The company shrunk from 42 people to 24 overnight. Shoulder to shoulder, we said, no, we are on to something. And what kept me going was, I think, 3 factors. The first factor, which was really important, was that the numbers were moving in the right direction. So clearly we were getting incrementally better every week on conversion, on cash flow, little better. So you said, okay, if I can buy some time, we'll be fine. The second was the fact that I had these colleagues who trusted in me. So 2 of them went on to become co-founders because they were giving everything to the company. And many of the others said, we are with you. That, I can tell you, can be scary, but it can be very empowering. And it can be very, very stimulating, because you say, wow, so many people are willing to trust you. They believe you know where you're going and taking them along. And the third factor is what I think is called gut instinct. So you can feel it. You can feel it inside. You can feel it in your bones that you're onto something. So I'm glad that all these 3 factors were there, which kept us going. Otherwise, we would have been one of those many other companies that shut shop at that point of time.
Correct. Glad that didn't happen. 2003, 2004, what changed that then made you guys decide that 2005 seems like a good time to relaunch in the country?
Yeah, I think 2003, we managed to actually get a small slug of angel money from a customer. NRI customer in the US liked what we were doing, and was oftentimes would buy tickets from us and said, okay, I want to put in, and he put in a modest sum, I think $150,000. Of course, in 2 years' time, got a phenomenal return on it. But and I think what started changing in 2004 in the environment was 2 big things. One was the advent of low-cost carriers. So India got its first low-cost carrier in the shape of Air Deccan. And then many others followed. Those were the days where we had, I guess, SpiceJet came and Indigo came a little later, etc. All of these low-cost carriers presented us with a very interesting scenario, which was customers wanted to buy this very cheap ticket. They saw ads, 999 Delhi Bangalore. They said, I want that. They called up their travel agent. The travel agent didn't want to sell it because 2 reasons. You made very little money on it. Secondly, if the travel agent bought it, he or she had to pay up for it, but may or may not get money from their customer on the phone. So we could solve that problem with technology. We could build a direct connect into the system, the host system of the airlines. Customers see the choices, customer put credit card, you like it, you take it, we'll make our tiny commission on it. The second macro or the second industry factor was, I think, Indian Railways, IRCTC, helped get people online. Helped give Indians the confidence that if you pay online, it's safe, your ticket will come, the ticket will happen. I think both of these put together gave us the confidence in 2005 to relaunch in India. We had stopped marketing in India. And then I think it was just next 5 years was frenetic growth. We grew some 25x from 2005 to 2010, and we managed to IPO on NASDAQ in 2010.
Absolutely. This automatically brings me to my next question about that 5 year period, because the rough statistic that I spoke about in the intro, there's a statistic that in 2005, only about 2% of the Indian population used to use internet, and that too not regularly. So that was the target audience, that was the condition in the country at that point of time. So what were those, say, what was the first 12 months like, and then the next 4 years that led to 2010?
Yeah, firstly, we must remember, even if you say 1 or 2% of India, it's still a very, very large number. Yeah. So at that point also, it was, a billion people is the total population. So you're still talking about a very sizable number, several millions of people who are online, and they were also willy-nilly the people who had the disposable power. That also kept growing as internet connectivity kept getting better. Smartphones were not there right now, but yeah, getting on the scene a little later. But people were connected, people had money, and they were trying out this new medium. So I think that gave us the confidence. That was enough for a small business. And I think we were just riding on the wave of this high growth. So India is growing, consuming power is growing, internet is growing, payment options were growing. And therefore, I think we were able to keep taking advantage of these many, many opportunities and keep kind of growing and staying in front and innovating. So I think that was a bunch of factors that were coming together, the perfect storm, which helped us really to grow at that kind of pace.
There are multiple young Indians out there like this. They don't want to do a job. They want to start their own business. So what should they study? Where should they study? Which can, through the course of time, teach them how to do a business, and hopefully during that course of time even give them an idea as to what they should do the business of, if you can help the youngsters on that.
Sure. So I think the skills that help you turn entrepreneur are very hard to really pinpoint, but definitely basic business skills. So that is one thing someone has to learn if they want to do their own business. You could get into commerce, you could get into economics. I'm assuming you're in school and you're making up your mind, or in college or whatever. So I think commerce and business definitely help. If you want to get into tech, then I think, being closer to technology, whether it's engineering or whether it's the sciences, that will help. But these core skills, they will give you the basic skills, right? But the fact on what problem you want to solve, what business you want to build, you have to actually be of the nature of mind to be problem solving. And that is why a lot of exams will test you for problem solving abilities. Why that? Because that's what work life is all about. Even if you're in a job or you're doing what you're doing, there'll be problems all the time. There'll be problems of scheduling, there'll be problems, things will go wrong, there'll be things multitasking. But a problem solving mind will say, okay, this is the situation, now let's work around it. Or, you have to get somewhere, there's terrible rain like we saw in Delhi last week, everything. How do you manage the situation? I think it's that kind of ability, if you're able to solve problems in a smart, structured manner, not get freaked out about it, which will really help. The second very important skill, which I don't think can be taught anywhere, is people management and how you get along with people. So while MBAs have courses around it, we call it OB, organizational behavior, leadership and development thing. You can do all of that, but it's a very innate skill I've seen, which is, are you good with people? For me, the best kind of leaders are the ones who get work from people who don't report to them. Getting work from people who report to you is easy. They have to work for you, otherwise, they'll have a hard time at appraisal. But people who don't, how do they rally troops? How do they get people together? Again, no different from politics and sports and everything else. There are natural born leaders. That's really important because you can't do everything yourself. So you want to build a team, which means you have to attract talent, which means you have to retain talent in tough times. That is very hard. Attracting is easy. Then retaining them, and thirdly, getting the best out of them, which is motivating them. So that skill set, I think, is really important. Also, that helps you fill up the void of the skills you don't bring. So I'm not a techie, so I needed someone on technology. And therefore, to get someone very good on technology means we are able to attract them, motivate them, retain them, keep them excited, and find the right kind of person who can build a team in tech. That's just one example. Similarly, you have to do it in all functions. So I think that's the kind of thinking you need. And it's not that difficult if you're willing to listen to customer. Whoever your customer is, they actually are telling you all the time, not in plain speak. They're not putting it out there like, I need an app to do this. No, they're telling you, if you're willing to listen, what their pain points are, what they'd love to have, what they enjoy doing, what they don't. And it's up to you to connect the dots.
In some recent event, you said that gone are the days of generalization. Now it's the time of specialization. You don't have to be good in multiple things anymore. You have to be very, very, very good in one thing. If you can elaborate, this was your quote. If you can elaborate on this a little for the young janta out there.
Yeah, and I don't want to say it out of context. So firstly, I think, like I just described to you, generalist skills across the board are very good. Like I personally feel my MBA has helped me in many respects because it's given me enough knowledge and confidence about multiple streams. So that's important. The point I was mentioning too is that today when the company is going from point, let's say not A to B, you need actually jack of all. So you need someone who can do all rounders. There are no boundaries. When the company is virtually like being born and you are just taking it to the first step, you need people who are willing to take the ball and run with it. They're not asking you, ye mera kaam hai, uska kaam hai, kiska hai, company ke liye hai. So you need all rounders. Then when you start getting bigger and bigger, and especially when you go up in scale in a big way, that's when you need specialists. And today I think that's becoming an important skill because tech is not just loosely tech and internet coding. No, today we are talking about AI. So people need to know that, and someone needs to be a master of that. Everyone will become a user and some will become a prompter, but how many will become the coder? So there are many functions. And I think at least where we are in our journey, we need specialists even in marketing. Gone are the days again where we'll have one person doing all kinds of marketing. No, today online marketing is a huge field in itself. So are you doing SEM? Are you doing SEO? Are you doing Insta ads? Do you have growth hacks? I mean, that is the kind of marketing today. You know, the largest influencer for travel and travel decisions today is social media.
Of course.
That we know. But how do we then as a company or any other company leverage that? That becomes the key. How do you make it a science? And then there is, of course, brand advertising, and there's PR, and there's comms, etc. So there's a lot of specialization when you are of a certain scale. But not to go out of context, in the early days, I think to understand all aspects is very good.
Lovely, lovely. For a young entrepreneur to crack it, how important is job experience? Is it an absolute must? How many years? I mean, of course, a number can't be put, but how important is that job experience bit? Or is it variable, or is it not a must at all?
Yeah, Korak, it's a great question. And I myself struggle with the answer. So my 8 years work ex, I think, really have helped me. But I can also tell you in the same breath that some of the best entrepreneurs in the world never worked for anyone. Yeah, very often they were technologists, whatever else, they couldn't wait. So it's a personal thing. See, learning doesn't stop in college. In fact, the smart people, they keep learning. Even if they are 60, 70, 80, they are learning. I also think you can learn a lot from your peers. You can learn a lot from, partners who you're meeting, smart people. I call it learning by osmosis. Being in the same room as smart people when tough decisions are being made. Some youngsters out there, and that's why I love calling youngsters to our reviews, because some of them will get excited. And I remember my early days in my corporate career, I would be in the same room as some of the senior people and say, wow, this is how they are thinking, and just be a fly in the wall. But you could be learning. So I think if you are of that ilk and you can't wait to get started, that's fine, go for it. Maybe later on in life for scaling up and all, you would say, oh, some work ex, but guess what? You learn along the way. Don't stop learning. Be ready to learn. Be humble about learning. Just because you are the founder or the CEO doesn't mean you cannot learn for someone 2 levels junior. You can learn a different skill. You can learn different things. Today, I can tell you my best time is spent either with customers or with youngsters, because they are telling you what's out there. They are in touch with the cutting edge technologies which are out there.
Absolutely. What is the mindset that a young entrepreneur, or doesn't have to be a young entrepreneur, what is the mindset that an entrepreneur should come on board with? Might not guarantee success, but can guarantee that I won't give up attitude? Because even you said not giving up is very important. So what kind of a mindset should a budding entrepreneur have?
Absolutely right. Not giving up, call it perseverance or call it resilience, is the number one attribute for any entrepreneur. So when you're starting something, besides the fact what we spoke about, you have a clear plan. What is the problem you're trying to solve? You've made your business plan. You're working around different aspects of it, funding. One very important question which you have to ask yourself, whether you're an individual or you're two or three co-founders, is how much am I willing to put in terms of time before calling it a day? And I always tell young entrepreneurs or a new entrepreneur, minimum 4 years. 4 to 5 years should be your mindset. I have seldom seen something take off in less than that.
Yeah.
If it does, it's great. You'll be pleasantly surprised. But if you don't have that mentality, you can call it the mentality of a long distance runner, long distance swimmer, whatever you want to call it. But you are saying, I'm in it for the long haul. And you've made your arrangements. I can forsake some creature comforts for 4 or 5 years. I've got enough funding. I will manage one way or the other. You're more likely to see green shoots of something coming up, and that will give you the confidence to go to the next level. Also, the other one is be very fixated and be very clear you're going to build a special business or a special product. But how you do it, be flexible. Be humble, be ready to learn from what's happening in the market, keep your ears to the ground. Things change, and you should be very ready to say, oh wow, now this has changed in the market. Let me now tweak a bit. In fact, sometimes tweak a lot, and that the fashionable word is pivot. It's fine to pivot, but be fixated on your overall goal that you're building a special company.
Absolutely. Mental health is talked about now. Loads. Good thing, should be talked about. But late 1900s, early 2000s, it wasn't talked about. People used to get depressed, stressed, anxious back then as well. You mentioned that there were times, especially in the first half a decade, when MakeMyTrip was going through multiple rough times. What did Deep do back then to fight the stress, to come out of it?
Yeah, we didn't have these terms that are, and I think it's good that this is out there today. Earlier, we didn't know. We just called everything stress.
Yeah.
So you're stressed out and you got to figure out how to get out of it. We even use terms like depression loosely. And now we've learned, of course, that these are very serious things.
Totally.
So I think my formula to deal with stress was really to break down the situation, the problem, into its small components, and then see how can we get out of this or wriggle out of this. So when 9/11 happened, how can we get more business away from US? Can we look at other markets, or can we look at India? How can we give people more confidence? When we launched in India, what should we tell people in India that they should be comfortable about buying online? Is it just a guarantee, or is it a low fare guarantee, which is guaranteed lowest fares here? At that time, it was a very new thing. If not, we'll give you double the difference. So I think you have to try to understand where are the mental blocks within yourself and with the team, and how can you deal with them. Like, one of the big things was so little money, like I said, that we didn't know tomorrow or day after. We really didn't know 2 months down. So let's take it 1 month at a time. But if you're in for a month, you're in for a month. That really helped me when I look back, saying, okay, we are in for this month of, let's say, in August. Now I'm 100% in, the team is 100% in. End of month, we will review position and take a call for the next month. So really one step at a time, but that one step was not 1 day or 1 week. But if you're in, then your entire body language should be different, because there are young colleagues out there looking at you. Let me tell you, if they see the founder and the co-founders with long faces and worried, they're saying, problem hai boss, cut lo apna kuch aur karo, because nothing's happening here. Versus saying that they are buoyant. And every month, at the end of month, literally in a couple of days, we would reconcile accounts, we would know our position, we would see and say, okay, one more. I think that gave a lot of confidence.
Lovely. That's absolutely amazing. You mentioned somewhere recently that when you hire, there are two things that you look at. One, of course, how much do they fit the role or not? The other thing that you look at is if they have a sense of humor or not. If you can elaborate on this a little.
Yeah, I did say that, and I do believe that it's one part of the answer. The first one is, what I don't look at is, or what I don't test for, is the skills. Their CV is there, their job experience is there. I have to trust that, and I have to take, comfort from that, listen, if the person is from so-and-so place and has worked so-and-so, they would be good. Anyway, in an interview, how much can you gauge on that, right? So I try to gauge a couple of things, and we'll come to sense of humor. The first thing I try to gauge is fitment, actually fitment into company. Because not everyone is made for, let's say, MakeMyTrip, and vice versa. I'm not saying, we might have someone who is actually a phenomenal candidate, but not right for us. So what does that mean? That means cultural fit. And that is our culture. So our culture is about team is everything. Good managers out here, if the team does really well, they give the credit, they deflect the credit to the team. If things go wrong, a good manager says, I'm the one who messed up. I try to look at these skills. So is it someone who's me, myself, and I kind of person? No room in our kind of company. And you can gauge those in various ways. I try to gauge conviction. How much conviction do you have in your own ideas? Whatever it is, your beliefs. It could be political beliefs. It could be beliefs about, sporting world. It could be beliefs about literally anything. But do you have conviction? So I'll push back and see, can you stand your ground, or are you malleable? Because I want people with conviction who will speak their mind. They're not afraid to speak their mind. Only then will we have better decision making. And thirdly, what I said when I say sense of humor is really an interesting personality. This is aspects of your personality which are interesting for two reasons. One is, as I'll hire senior people, of course, I mean, they're the ones I'll interview. Do they have the ability to build their own team? For that, you've got to have a strong personality to be able to attract other people to work for you. And secondly, if I'm going to work for long hours with this person, the person better be interesting. So sense of humor is a kind of a small way to actually gauge these kind of things. And I look for that. I look for interesting conversations.
At the same place, at the same venue, you said, while the hiring process is on, you guys have selected a candidate, you give them two offers. One, where you give the offer of extra cash, basically extra CTC or whatever, and the other offer where the CTC is a little less, but there's more company stocks. If you can elaborate on that.
Absolutely, and you've really done a lot of research, correct? So it's a way to gauge, actually, this is more to gauge where the head of the person coming in is. Because as a fast growing company, a company listed, the stock is worth a lot. But also if you believe that the company will continue to do well, which is why you're joining, and you're ready to commit for long. I said 4 or 5 years to start a business. I look for people minimum 4 or 5 years. In fact, I love it when people have done 10, 15, 20 years. I have people who have been with me all 24 years, wow, which is amazing. But the moment you've done a long term, you can really start giving much more. In fact, I believe it takes 1 year just to start contributing in a meaningful manner. You get to know the company gets to know you. Some people maybe hit the ground running in 6 months, some take 9 months, some take 12 months. So if you don't have the mentality that you're in it for the long run, then you'll probably take more cash, especially at senior levels. Because I understand at junior levels, you need the cash, you need to meet EMIs and other expenses. But at senior levels where you're comfortable, I love the fact when people say, no, I'd rather take a little less in cash, which is comp, but I'll take more on equity, because that means they are more excited about the long term. So it's just a simple test here. I've devised many such simple games and puzzles to try to understand the headset.
Lovely. Very, very fascinating that was. When you started MakeMyTrip, you said one of the leading reasons behind that was that you realized the internet is here to stay and here to change the world. You recently said AI is going to do the same. What's your take on it, and what is MMT doing with AI to change the customer experience?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do believe that AI's impact right now is only being felt maybe 1 or 2 or 5%. I think this is just the beginning. The sheer power and scope and potential of AI is actually scary, to be honest, right? It is going to have an impact on jobs. Some jobs will change. People like to just brush it under the carpet and say, oh, that's exactly what happened with computerization. Sure, but this is far bigger. If you have something now which can write code, I mean, that means even programmers are thinking, oh my God, this can write basic code. So what are we going to be doing? Customer service, it's a no-brainer. Because in customer service, the lament always was, if you have people, they should be well-trained. But what about someone's having a bad day? They're just not sharp enough. What if they didn't note down an important thing in our business? Oh, this person wants to change the ticket, but they want to change 2 tickets, or 2 people are canceling, but the other 2 are continuing. It can ruin your whole journey, right? However, you said the moment it's done online, and let's say by chatbots, etc., The limitation was it's not personal. I don't like doing this. I want to call someone. I want to talk to them. Now you have the best of both. So you have the best of memory, which is because it's computerized and it's automated, and you have the best of human-like intelligence, where the chatbot now can guess what you need next, can predict what you need next, and actually be very human-like in their assessment and analyzing power and capabilities. So that's just one aspect. This is going to cut right across. So as entrepreneurs, we have to seize new opportunities, seek and seize, and as individuals working in any line, we've all seen the stuff out there which AI is creating paintings, AI is creating music. People say it's scary. Some say, oh wow, but we'll get the best ever. Some say, what happens to the artists? That debate will continue. But what I can tell you is the change is going to be monumental all across. So either we are ready for it, or we are the ostrich with our head buried under the sand and just thinking, oh, this will blow away. I think we've been early movers. And why I say I think, because there's a late mover advantage sometimes. And we are working very closely with actually Microsoft on this, which obviously through ChatGPT has been one of the forerunners in this world. We have capabilities which on our app you can speak in Hindi, in English, and book a ticket, book a hotel room, everything just like you're having a conversation. So our whole approach is make it very conversational-like, and we are using some of the capabilities to predict what you would like and what you would not like. So it's personalization, but taken to another level. So hyper-personalization, and also learning all the time from all the signals that you're giving us when you interact with our various platforms. So a bunch of work there and a bunch of work on the back end as well. So like I said, in terms of programming, we are looking at definitely not hiring people at basic skills. We are saying all of that can be done, basic programming. What else can we do? And also with our partners, we are now using AI with some of our platforms, or we're thinking about how we will do that. So we are struggling to cope up already. It's not easy, but at least we are clearly across the boards, CTO, CEO downwards of the belief this is going to have massive, massive impact.
You mentioned monumental change. There's a major change that has happened in the country as far as travel and tourism is concerned. In the worldwide rankings itself, it was somewhere in the house of 50s. Now it's at 39th. There are multiple statistics which state that by 2033, in the next 9 years, there'll be tons of jobs. There'll be more than like 500,000 jobs in the travel and tourism industry. So what is your take on that? The major boom that the travel industry is witnessing?
Yeah, travel and tourism is directly related to consuming power or consumption growth, which is directly related to the rise of middle class income. So India is definitely come into a period where I think the next 20 years should be our glorious 2 decades at least. And why? Very young population, emerging now from, we're at about $2,000, $2,300 per capita income, and ready to just take off. We saw all other economies of the world take off at that point of time. Plus, we have many other, foundation stones ready. So we have great internet connectivity, like I said. We have great payment systems. Our payment systems are probably more sophisticated than anywhere in the world today. So we've got all the building blocks in place. So we are ready to take off perhaps even earlier than when other economies took off in terms of per capita GDP. So all of that takes off. Travel is one of the biggest gainers because it's directly linked to disposable income. More disposable income, where do people want to spend it? In fact, Gen Z is not buying houses, is not buying cars, but is definitely spending on self and going out and traveling. So we're seeing a massive boom. In fact, I don't think India has enough supply to cater to this boom. So there's going to be a lot of stuff, and a lot of the jobs in travel and tourism are the kind of hospitality where luckily I don't think AI can take on today.
What is your take on how much has the government schemes and the government's role behind this been behind the boost in the travel system?
I think there's no denying that the last 10 years we've seen a tremendous boom in infrastructure, and that has really helped travel and tourism. Now, you mentioned railways and you mentioned airports, but roads. Today, just driving across the country, the quality of our highways is no less than anywhere in the world today. It's really fantastic. Yes, last mile connectivity sometimes. The last mile is where more work has to be done. And we've done it in some places. Today, when you go to the Taj, you see it's the whole approach has really improved a lot. You go to Golden Temple, it's improved a lot. We have to now do that for all popular places. The one thing we have to work on is carrying capacity, where we don't have too many people overcrowding popular destinations in season time, because then there are not enough places to stay. People end up staying, in their cars literally in peak time. So we have to check this. We have to not allow more people than a certain number to get into places, so that we protect these places. And what I feel very strongly about is just sustainability, which is the carbon footprint that we're spreading every time we travel. So we have to really think about light carbon footprint. We have to think about green travel. We have to think about sustainability. At Make My Trip, we are putting up for you now which hotels are far more green than the others, where you could stay. Soon aviation fuel, green aviation fuel will be a reality. Right now it's on test mode in some European countries. So there'll be much smarter ways to travel and to keep our destinations clean.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so much of a civic issue. Whenever there's rains and there's waterlogging, we complain on the governments. But if you keep throwing plastic on the road, there will be waterlogging.
Choking up the drains, absolutely.
Exactly. So it's a civic issue. Keep it clean and automatically it'll look better. It'll be better. I just read somewhere yesterday, this was not part of the questions, but I'll ask you. I read it on Instagram where they said that the Gen Z version of a ticket's printout is the screenshot. We make the payment, we take the screenshot. What if the email doesn't come? I have to have the proof. When you relaunched business in India in 2005, if you remember what were maybe one or two of the most bizarre questions that a team member heard or something about the ticket, about a booking?
In fact, I should correct you. The Gen Z version is to add to calendar. Straight away to your passport, and which you can do today on our site. They don't even, screenshot is more like maybe my generation. Hold on to it. Okay, maybe. Somewhere intermediate, that's fine. But earlier on, something as crazy as printouts. So before e-ticketing was a reality, and I think we're talking about 2007, 2008, you had to print out every ticket and you had to send it to customers. They were often traveling tomorrow, day after. You had to courier it. So really? Every day we were couriering out 5,000-10,000 tickets. And today that number would be in several lakhs. So thankfully there's e-tickets. At one time we actually thought we should buy a courier company, because local couriers were becoming a big part of our bill and our expense lines. So that was crazy, and people would actually do this. But people would do exactly these kind of things. Ye chalega, and people questions would be, what if kal refuse kar diya hame boarding ke liye? And he said, this is an e-ticket, this is your PNR number. And people would go and check with the then they would call the airline and give the PNR number to get the assurance.
Right.
It seems bizarre, but let me tell you, travel is one of those things which is fraught with nervousness, and senior people are very worried. So, younger and, travelers like you, frequent travelers like me, if we don't have check-in bags, we know we can reach the airport, 45 minutes before, go right through, boom,
Easy.
boom, boom.
Easy peasy.
You talk to someone who's 60 and 70. They are at the airport 3-4 hours before. वहाँ बैठ जाएंगे सब कुछ, and they'll be near the boarding gate. कि ये ना हो कि plane announce और plane चला जाए. So, we've come a long, long way, and things have changed a lot from that. Today, paperless travel. So, and I have to compliment the government for Digi Yatra. It's amazing. I mean, you just look at the simplicity. And tomorrow, I think we should use biometrics even for immigration and emigration. Why do we need to have, for frequent travelers coming back to your own country, we should do it like the way most of Europe. Dubai is doing a phenomenal job. If you've traveled to Dubai once, you never ever have to go to a person go to a booth that's manned by a person. You'll go through those gates, they'll scan your face, make you wait for 10-15 seconds, and you're done. So I think we should keep leveraging technology. It's actually a surer and a safer way to let people travel.
Lovely. You mentioned things that the government is doing. There is one of the schemes where, again, something that you mentioned, in the smaller towns, in the villages, training is being given to those people who have their houses and their villas to convert them into homestays and Airbnbs and all of that. Now, this is something that the government is doing itself. You mentioned that, but I still want to ask you your take on that.
Yes, we are in fact partnering. We are doing a wonderful program with Niti Aayog, which came as an idea from them, where we are actually teaching a lot of homestay owners. These are ladies typically, on how to convert their current home into a homestay, one room at a time, and how to work with guests, how to manage a simple booking on an app, what kind of requirements they have, whether it's hygiene in rooms or toilets, or it's also the food, and how they can give a very interesting stay. So it's a very exciting program that we're doing with Niti Aayog, Project Maitri, I believe, and we are very excited about it. So I think there's a lot of scope for public public-private partnership here, and we are very happy to partner with these novel schemes.
Absolutely. Deep, we are right towards the end of our podcast. Before we let you go, there's one last question that I want to ask you. You have literally seen the country across various decades, the growth that the country has had, our country has had. Now, when we talk about developments galore, you mentioned the roadways. When we talk about travel, 20 years back, when we used to talk about space, it was all NASA. Now it's all ISRO. ISRO has achievements happening by the fortnight. If you talk about sports, the last Asian Games, 107 plus medals. There is so much happening in the country. The world is noticing India as the place to be in the next decade, in the next 2 decades. How does that make you feel, not as a visionary entrepreneur, but as an Indian? How does that make you feel?
Super, super, super proud. I mean, it's just an amazing feeling, right? And I think our time has come, like I said earlier. I think the next couple of decades, two, maybe more. It all depends on how we play our cards through this. But really, India is shining, and not without reason. We always had the capability. I mean, Indians are shining everywhere in the world.
Exactly.
There was a survey done of how many top multinational companies in the world are run by Indians, headed by Indians. They could be anywhere else. Why? Because of our phenomenal education system out here and our work ethic. So not only very great education system, but we're willing to work very hard. Now we're seeing many, many new colleges, new places come up. I'm involved with Ashoka University, which is one such example. But there's a lot more happening on the ground. And all of this we are going to see really take shape as we go forward. And then, like we said, we have the consuming power. We have everything, really. Don't want to jinx it, but I think the best is yet to come.
Absolutely. Sounds amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, the OG entrepreneur was here with us at Growth Dreams Passion at MyGov. Deep, it was an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I enjoyed myself.